What's going on for you? How could I help?
The man, the myth, the legend, Steve himself. You can help me a lot, and we're going to talk about it. So I'm in your LSAT class, so I'm not going to ask about logic games and all that wonderful stuff that we talk about often. I want to talk to you about something I know you're talking about tomorrow, but personal statements and letters of recommendation. I'm venturing into this world a little later in life, right? So I'm 36, about to be 37. I've got 20 years almost of military experience right under my belt. And so in writing the personal statement, I'm looking at this lifespan, right, of childhood, high school, undergrad, which I did while in the service. And then I got my graduate level degree as well. I, on top of all the military service, awards, recognition, etc. Steve, I can give them 10 pages. And I know that that's not good, but I also don't know how to, at this age with this much information, to condense it. I'm a talker. How do I condense that? And what's pertinent, what's not? And I know, like I said, you have the class tomorrow, but for me personally, that's my main question is like, what do they want to hear? What do they not want to hear? How important is it for me to talk about the work experience that I have? Or the experience when I was a little girl and the first time somebody discriminated against me. I don't know, and that's kind of where I'm at with the personal statement.
Yeah, sure. Great questions. Very common questions as well. A lot of folks have the exact same things they're trying to figure out. One thing I'll say is that if you have a story where somebody discriminated against you, depending on what it was about, that could be a diversity statement. You could potentially, based on the specifics, include that in a separate diversity statement. You don't need to take up space in your primary personal statement to talk about that.
So, Steve, diversity statements are different from the actual personal statement. That's something that you write separate and attach in LSAT?
Yeah, it's a separate essay.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that. And what's the format? And I say format, but like length of something like that. Do you just talk about an issue or?
It could be short. It should be shorter probably.
Okay.
I would aim to tell a story. I'm thinking on the order of 300 to 500 words. Okay. Schools may have different length requirements, but that's the ballpark.
Okay. Cool.
And and then for the main personal statement, you're typically looking at 2 pages double spaced.
So that's what I keep reading, Steve. 2 page double spaced.
That's about it. It's not a lot of space.
So what would you say? And I know, like I said, you're going to get into this, and I'll be there tomorrow. But what are we talking about here? Like as far as information is concerned, do they care about what I did in high school? I'm almost 40. Like does that matter any? And then I'm also looking at it from a competitive perspective too, Steve. Like for me, I don't. I still work full time, all this good stuff. So studying for the LSAT is definitely time consuming for me, but definitely have to find the time too. But how much does that play, the personal statement? How much, does it play into the scoring or the application process, I should say? And I've heard you talk about this before, but I think I'm looking at it from a perspective of I'm a little older. I have some other things that, have happened as far as life is concerned and experiences are concerned. If I don't score high, which we don't want to speak that into existence, universe, we're going to do well. But how much does that personal statement really play into it,
It's not a huge factor. It's certainly not the top factors. The biggest thing is LSAT, then GPA, then everything else. But that being said, if you could write 2 pages that would have even a 3% or a 5% or a 10% impact on your application as a whole, why not take advantage of that? Especially, let's just say for a hypothetical applicant where like the numbers didn't reflect their story, and no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get the numbers where they wanted them to be, but they were a great writer, or they could get help to make their writing shine. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do everything you possibly could? Now, as for high school, I wouldn't talk about high school. I wouldn't make that a focus, especially if you're a non-traditional applicant, not fresh out of college. High school is even more distant. It's more than half a lifetime ago, right? How much does it say about you today? But on the flip side, let's say that your most compelling story about why you wanted to go to law school was about something from high school times, then sure, you could work it in. But I would imagine that something more impactful is likely to have happened in the past 20 years, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You said 20 years, Steve, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely it has, and that's kind of where, I was, as I start typing, I get into this storytelling mode and I'm like, man, what part of this is the most important? If I were writing about, all of the things that I've been through, deployments, et cetera, what's really gonna, but I keep kind of trying to bring myself back to, why do you want to go to law school though? It's beautiful. All these things have happened, but what's the thing? What's the driving factor? And I do have that particular, piece of me written and ready to rock, but and I'm excited to share it with you too. I saw your email about like throwing some of those things out there and you reviewing. So that was the question on that. The second question is letter of recommendation. So I've read that there's 2 to 4, right, letters of recommendation, and so I went to school all online, right? All online, undergrad, graduate level, all online. And I don't know that I necessarily, I would say, connected, Steve, with my professors like that. It was an online school. I think, you turned in some assignments, they graded them, but there wasn't a lot of discussion. I wouldn't even say that these people necessarily know a lot about me. How much does their letter really play into an application when I don't think that they're necessarily people that may be able to speak on much about me personally?
Yeah, it's a tough situation. It's a real one. And I imagine that a lot more folks are going to be in that position with everything moving online due to COVID in 2020. So I would suggest if there aren't the relationships there, then try to get your letters elsewhere, especially if you're a non-traditional applicant. Law schools are going to be more understanding. If you have maybe work experience letters that are going to be more relevant, if you have people from your military experience or from other maybe work contexts who could write you a letter that more closely talks about who you are, then I would go with those.
Is it a negative, Steve, to not have a letter from a professor? Would you say? Do you think that's a bad thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing. Given your situation is perfectly understandable. I think in an ideal world, everybody would have deep relationships with everybody who could write them a letter. But if your school's online, they're going to know, and they're going to see this cycle with everything being online this fall, or most things being online, at least in this past spring, also being online. They're going to see that a ton of applicants aren't going to have letters from professors when previously they would have, because they're not getting to form those relationships to the same extent.
Okay, cool. That makes me feel a lot better, because I was like, I don't know. I started to think about it, and I was going to send the request, and I was like, I don't know these people. I don't know. I don't even know what they would say. You know what I mean? Except for maybe the assignments and stuff. So I thought that was pretty profound. And then, so my last question for you here, and we don't have to share the screen. I'll kind of just talk you through what I've done here. So I created this document, and I do logic games in my have my little book, and I do my logic games. I write them all out, Steve, based on the format that you gave me to go in. So what I have is like a Word doc, and I'll write out the name of the game, and then or what the game is, right? And then the questions. As I'm going through each question, and I have the LSAT, the Law Hub with all the prep tests. So I go through the questions, and I write like, say, correct. If I write the answer, that I guess or get right, because I feel good about it. And then I'll write how I felt while I was answering that question. Now, this takes a lot of time, but I'll say, hey, I feel really good about this, or, I don't know what I'm doing here, something like that. And then I'll go back and see what I got right, what I got wrong. And the ones that I have, like I didn't know what I was doing, or maybe I guessed them or something like that. It's kind of like a guide for me. And I've moved through logic games like this. It's time consuming though. So I'm not necessarily working on speed yet. So we're in July and we're moving along. Do you think that this process though, because what's happening though is I'm getting all the answers right. Okay, so there you go. You see it, Steve? Thumbs up there. However, it takes me some time, right? So there's a lot of thought. Does it sound beneficial what I'm doing? It feels good because I can see the progress in the question types, and I can go back and look, and it's more so how I feel, right, Steve, when I'm answering the question. Like I can tell you I felt good or I felt horrible. Like I had no clue what they were talking about, and I can kind of go back to that. But I'm not fast at all. And
well, let me ask you this: does it feel like you're deepening your understanding?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Does it suck in the moment while you're doing it?
It's time consuming, but it doesn't suck though, Steve. It doesn't feel horrible because I'm learning, and I can tell I'm learning. Yeah, I can tell I'm learning. So it's time consuming, but at the end of it all, when I can say I got 6 out of 6 or 6, I can say I got them all right. I'm like, woo, that was good. And I feel good. And I wipe my forehead. I feel great about the game. I look back at and I have all if they all go in order. We won't show you my diagrams because you might be like, what the crap are you doing over there? But nonetheless, Steve, we're working through it. But I know I'm not fast.
That's fine, but you get it. This is hard work, but it pays off. I mean, you're a veteran. You know what it feels like to embrace the suck and be in that moment where it's brutal, but you're getting value out of it.
Who told you that one, Steve? Who you know in the military that told you to embrace the suck? Because that's somebody you know. Because that's a good motto.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. So this is the same thing. It's super time consuming, but you're getting value out of the process. It may mean that you're not able to go as far or as fast, but the insights you're getting from the questions you review will increase your accuracy further.
Okay. I feel good about it, man. I'm going to keep pressing, and then I think we start working on speed like in August, like towards the beginning of the month. So that's cool. All right. That's good, Steve. I feel good. Feel good. Those are my questions. They were kind of personal to me. Yeah.
No, those are all great, and I'm sure others will find value in it too. There is one thing I want to circle back to, though. You said earlier about the personal statement. You were talking about how you have all these different things you could include. You could have 10 pages, and you talked about condensing it. Yeah. And I want to encourage you to take a different approach, because if you condense everything and you try to say everything in 2 pages double spaced, you're going to end up saying nothing. This is a problem when you take the more you zoom out, the lower the resolution is, and the less we can actually get a sense of what was really happening. So the only way to win that game is to not play it, to not try and include everything. Instead, if you've got 10 stories you could tell, don't try to tell all 10, pick one of them, and it'll feel sad in the moment to let the other 9 go. But maybe you could tell another one in another optional essay. You have the diversity statement where you could tell a different story. And then there could be at least 7, 8 stories that don't get told, or maybe more, but they'll at least get the general overview of those in the resume. And again, our lives are too vast and complex and varied and unique for us to be able to tell every admission officer the entire life story. Some things just won't get told. And so what that means is that the things you do pick really have to count. And so you could, if you have 3 stories you're considering, write a draft of each one of those 3 and then see which one feels the best.
I like it. Yeah, that's what I'll do then. Because right now I'm I'm trying to give you everything. I feel like this one's important. Now, this one's good, Steve. Now, this is a good story, and that's how it is, and I keep kind of going into it, and it gets longer and longer, and it's become this, this book almost, this feel like, and I know that that's not what they're looking for, but I don't know what parts and pieces to take away. And I had that problem in school even, right? With they would say 10 to 12 pages or 12 to 16 or something like that. And here I am at 20 and I'm like, you're just going to take it. You'll take these 20 pages, because I don't know what I want to take away. So I feel that way now, but I also know that saturating that personal statement is not going to be beneficial. So that's good. I think that'll be better for me to write them all separately and then just kind of come back and go, okay, which one sings, which one really captures me.
Yeah. One thing you could do if you want, since we have the workshop tomorrow, is you could write just 1 paragraph on each of those 3. And then we could talk through, and I'll read each of those 3 and I'll tell you which one I think has the most potential. We could talk through where you would take it next, and then you go out and flesh that one out more fully.
Okay. Yeah, I could do that for sure. Yeah, because I'm off work today. I got that. I can do that.
Awesome. All right. So send it to me in a couple hours, and then we'll look at it tomorrow night.
All right. Perfect. Cool. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Michelle. Thanks for showing up.
The man, the myth, the legend, Steve himself. All right. We'll see you then tomorrow night for sure.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.